Thank you for coming to speech tonight. My name is Niraj,
and I am Sabrina Grislis, and we are the co-presidents of Pi Kappa Delta.
So I hate to do this to you, Sabrina, but what is Pi Kappa Delta?
You know, I'm glad you asked now that you've become one of the co-presidents. But Pi Kappa Delta is a National Honor Society for Public Speaking.
Oh, an honor society, so there's probably a GPA requirement?
I mean, no, that's how you were able to join.
So no GPA requirements?
No.
Is this even legit?
It is legit. It is a nationally recognized honor society for public speaking.
Wow, that sounds really legit. I'm glad I became president.
I'm glad you did too, kind
So,
of.
what are we doing here tonight?
So tonight we are here to showcase some of the speeches that have been worked on by members of the speech and debate team throughout this semester. We'll be listening to 5 different types of speeches, some of which our audience members may be familiar with, and some of which you may not have ever heard before.
Wow, I can't wait to get started. I feel I'm in the mood to be persuaded.
Well, that is perfect because our first speech is going to be a persuasive speech from Miss Brenna Purcell. Woo! Before Brenna starts, I just want to say, can you put away your cell phones unless you are Eli, who is recording, and just be a respectful audience member, and let's get started.
Raise your hand if you hope to have a positive impact on the world one day. All right, now keep your hand raised if you have ever heard of the man Norman Borlaug. 2, 3 of you? I don't find that very surprising, but I do find it kind of sad. Why? Well, it's because Dr. Norman Borlaug actually did the thing we all raised our hands in hopes of doing. He really did benefit the world. In fact, this man has been accredited with saving over 1 billion human lives. That's a billion with a B. So why do we not all know this hero's name? Well, I believe it is partially due to the fact that the way in which Dr. Borlaug saved those lives is not popular in today's society. Because you see, he used genetically modified organisms. He developed a new strain of grain that was resistant to diseases and droughts. But today, genetically modified organisms are not encouraged or popular, but actually actively discouraged and opposed. And I stand before you here today to say that this opposition to genetically modified organisms has to stop because we are harming the world. Today, we are going to be looking at genetically modified organisms. First, the 2 problems associated with this opposition to genetically modified organisms. Secondly, the causes for this opposition. And lastly, some solutions that if we implement can hopefully help ameliorate the issue. But before I begin, please allow me to define what a genetically modified organism, or GMO, actually is. A genetically modified organism, according to the World Health Organization, is any organisms whose DNA has been altered in a way that does not occur naturally by mating and or natural recombination. All right, so now that we know what they are, why are we talking about it? I mean, why does it really matter if we get our facts straight when it comes to GMOs? Well, because when we don't, we're actively harming the world's poor. When we oppose genetically modified organisms in the first world, we are harming those in the developing nations. According to DoSomething.org, 11.4% of the world population is undernourished. To put that in numbers, that's 805 million individuals who suffer from not having enough food. But you don't need to look at hypothetical numbers to see the actual first world real implications that opposing genetically modified organisms has on developing nations. We only need to look back 3 years to the Philippines. In 2014, International Rice Research Institute set up test plots in the Philippines for a new strain of rice called golden rice. Now, golden rice gets its name because it contains high amounts of keratin, which give it its golden color and also produce high amounts of vitamin A. Vitamin A deficiency is a large problem in the Philippines and affects the skin and eyes and can even cause death. And sadly, it affects children the most. Now, one might go ahead and assume that any new innovation that prevents early childhood death and suffering would be welcomed with open arms. But sadly, this was not the case. As Elizabeth Finkel points out in an International Rice Research Institute article from 2014, instead, a bus of anti-GMO activists came in from the city but claimed to be for small farmers and tore into the crop. Now, in this example, we can see directly how our first world stigmatize of genetically modified organisms has affected the third world. But maybe you're one of those people that thinks other nations really aren't our concern. Well, you should still worry, because the opposition to genetically modified organisms is harming us here at home. Because the underlying message we send with the anti-GMO movement is that GMOs are bad, so if you consume them, you must care less about your family or the environment. But not everybody can afford to buy organic. As an LA Times article from 2015 notes in a consumer consensus report, organic food had a price markup of, on average, 47%. And in some cases, that price markup was over 300%. So the unintended consequence behind this movement is to simply shame people who cannot afford to buy organic. And really, doesn't our world have enough ridiculous classism without dragging what brand of apple you buy into the mix? So these are our clear problems with the opposition to genetically modified organisms. But where does this opposition come from? Why do people hate them so much? Let's slide it under the microscope and find out. I believe we can boil down the opposition to two main problems. First, the idea that genetically modified organisms are harmful or less healthy for human consumption, and second, that they're harmful for the environment. We're going to get to both, but allow me to address the first concern first, that GMOs are not healthy or safe for humans. I get why this would be a popular notion, but life is not actually a sci-fi film. Science has spoken. GMOs are safe. According to a Forbes article from October 2013, every international science body in the world has conducted multiple independent studies on GMOs and found that they are as safe and sometimes safer than organic produce. And according to Christy Wilcox from USA Today, roughly genetically modified organisms have not caused any increase in cancer, gastrointestinal illness, kidney disease, allergies, or autism at all. Where'd she get this information? I'm glad you asked. She got it from a 388-page paper that was conducted by 50 scientists that looked at 900 separate studies over the past 20 years and was published in the National Academies of Science, and they found that GMOs are absolutely safe for human consumption. All right, so that's the first myth, and what about, no, maybe they're not as healthy? Well, you might be actually eating your words instead of organic, because that's not true either. According to a Newsweek article from October 2013, genetically modified organisms have been proven in a Stanford University study that was published in the National Academy of Science to not be any less healthy for you than organic counterparts, nor were they less likely to be contaminated, nor were they any more likely to be contaminated by pathogenic bacteria like Salmonella or E. coli. All right, so they're fine for human consumption, but what about our second? Surely you've got me there. They're bad for the environment. You know, pesticides and all. Actually, no. As a USA Today article from 2012 by Elizabeth Krinkle, she notes that actually genetically modified organisms have the exact same type of pesticides as organic. No matter what anybody tells you, organic pesticides are not better and they do not just disappear. And in fact, many GM crops use less pesticides because they're intentionally made to be pest resistant in a safe way, so we don't have to spray as much. And as a Bloomberg article from 2015 by Drake Bennett notes, a study from the University of Göttingen by two agricultural economists, they found that on average, GM technology reduced pesticide use by 22% and increased crop yields by 37%. So actually, we have less pesticides being used and less land being used because of their higher per capita yields. All right, these are our very clear problems to the genetically modified organisms opposition and the causes for this. But what are some solutions? Well, it's very simple. We can all just do actual research. Don't go onto websites like the Anti-GMO Project or BuzzFeed or something that's going to be clearly biased for your information. Look at actual scientific studies and not just somebody's blog or opinion on the topic. And once you've done that, spread the word. If you see your peers toting anti-GMO rhetoric in the form of stickers or bags or posters, let them know that they seriously need to rethink that stance because it is actually harming the world. And it doesn't come from any maliciousness, just that they're misinformed. Don't let it spread. If you belong to a group like Greenpeace or a similar organization, that's wonderful. But let them know that you're not on board with anti-GMO propaganda. And please, if you have any more questions, come and talk to me. because there's a lot of stuff I couldn't fit in a 10-minute speech. As Dr. Norman Borlaug states, we cannot build a world on hunger and human misery. And now that we've learned about GMOs, the problems that are caused when we oppose them, which is harming the world's poor, the root causes with these problems, which is a lack of scientific understanding and some very real solutions we can all implement to help ameliorate the issue, we don't have to let the world suffer in hunger.
Great job, Brenna. I feel very persuaded. Do you?
I do actually.
I think after this, I'm probably going to go buy some GMOs. Just a little bit about Brenna that we missed before. She is... Brenna is a senior international relations major, and this is her second year participating in speech and debate. And this is actually her last semester. She is graduating, so let's give her another round of applause. So, Miraj?
So our next speech is going to be an impromptu given by Clayton Lynch. He is a transfer from Butte College, and he is a ag business major.
What's an impromptu speech?
Well, it's typically a 2-minute prep and a 5-minute speaking time speech.
Okay. Sounds scary.
Oh, it is, trust me. Do you know where I can learn more tips about impromptu?
I do. Today, or I'm sorry, not today, we're doing this. On Thursday from 7 to 8 p.m. in Tehama 106, Pi Kappa Delta will be doing an impromptu workshop for those of you who may be in Communications 131. We have these great flyers up here for you to come grab. So if after you watch Clayton's speech and you think, oh my gosh, I want to kill it like he does, hopefully, then you should come on down to our impromptu workshop, which is going to be Thursday from 7 to 8 in Tehama 106. So, Clayton, are you getting ready over there?
Yes.
Probably,
We'll give him some time.
we'll give him about 30 more seconds, and then he'll give us his impromptu speech. All right, Clayton, you're coming up on your 2-minute mark.
Oh, sorry. Was I supposed to be doing something? This brings me to the quotation given to me. The things you own end up owning you, by Tyler Durden, personal hero of mine. I interpret this just as stated, that the things you own end up owning you. And I agree with this interpretation. The points I'll be using to make you agree with this interpretation too are our friends with fur and legs, our devices with no antennas, and our homes and mortgages. So to begin, let's talk about dogs. Dogs. We all own dogs, right? How many people in this room own a dog? Wow. You are all enslaved. I own a dog too, and at one point I thought I owned him, but it turns out that he runs my life. I have to feed him, clean up his waste. Sometimes I have to clean their teeth. I have to clip their nails. I think it's preposterous that we think that we own these creatures when in fact we are their slaves. I don't know whoever invented this concept of owning a dog, but it's really quite a bit of work, and I don't enjoy it that much. I might have to get rid of them. Does anyone want a dog? Anyone want a dog? Oh, Sabrina does. It's your choice. Well, in this way, we can see that dogs, but in the reflection of the quotation, the things you own end up owning you. We think we own the dogs, but in fact, they own us. So let's walk our fake and hopefully gone soon dog over this way as we come to phones. This little guy. Now, in this case, and as you can see in my attention getter, that the phone, in fact, owns me. I think I own it. I stick it in my pocket of my pants, which I own. However, this phone runs a lot of parts of my life, and probably runs a lot of your lives too. I mean, how many people in this room have a phone? If everyone doesn't raise their hand, I'll be somewhat suspicious. But yeah, the phone, it runs a big portion of your life because it has social media, it has Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat. And we spend a lot of our time on there when we're actually being denied a lot of social interaction or being denied a lot of freedom. We are, in fact, enslaved to our phones, and we don't even know it. Now that I've talked about phones and dogs and all those really common items, I'm going to talk about something that hopefully not too many of you have, which is a mortgage. How many of you want to be homeowners someday? Wow, you're all so foolish. No. Homeownership is a great dream. It's part of the classic American dream. However, there are some pitfalls to it. When you have a mortgage, which I don't know how many of you know the definition of mortgage from its original Latin roots, but mort meaning death and gage meaning a promise or a pact. So it's basically a death pact with the bank. This is something we have to basically sign ourselves off to, chain our cuff ourselves to a ball or something, and drop ourselves to the bottom of the ocean. Because we spend so much of our time working for this thing that we think we own. We think that we own this house. I mean, we all kind of know that we don't because we're paying it off. It's kind of ours, but not quite. Anyways, it's something that we think we own, we think that we are in charge of, but in fact, it owns us. We have to work every day. We have to stay employed in order to pay the bank back for the mortgage that we've been, duped into getting. I mean, I don't know many other ways to buy a house except outright with cash, because I can get that hookup from a drug dealer. I got that cash on hand. But, yeah. You don't tell me. Yeah, in that way, I think that the idea of homes and mortgages really exemplifies the things you own end up owning you. And to circle back around, now that I've rephrased the quotation, and I interpret it just as that, and I agree with that interpretation, and I hope now all of you do too. We can see that in the beginning, I was quite distracted by my phone. I pulled it out of my pocket. I had to look at it in at least a fake sort of way so that you'd all believe I was looking at it. And it distracted me from just doing what I need to do in this moment. And in that way, the thing that which I own ended up owning me.
This Thursday, Tehama 106, 7 to 8 p.m.
Yes, I hope to see you all there. You can come. I would love to have your help. So, who's our next speaker going to be, Niraj?
Eddie. Yeah.
And what will Eddie be doing for us today? So Eddie Aldretti, who is a sophomore media arts major and is actually a member of Pi Kappa Delta. He is our secretary. He will be performing an informative speech. So I hope you are all informed on what an informative speech is, as I'm sure you have all done. So let's welcome Eddie.
On December 4th of last year, Edgar Madison Welch walked into Comet Ping Pong Pizzeria, firing an assault rifle into the ceiling. He believed that he was a hero needed to save the children trapped in the basement, being sold into a sex slave ring, headed by Hillary Clinton. However, after discovering that there were no trapped children, or even a basement, Madison surrendered right away to authorities. Pizzagate, as it is referred to online, occurred because of a fake news story circulating around the internet that Madison and many others believed. A healthy democratic society relies on objective news to stay informed. But in our world of online media today, discerning between Pizzagate and Watergate has now become difficult. According to the Pew Research Center in 2016, nearly 79% of online Americans now use Facebook. And in that same year, Craig Silverman discovered that the most popular fake news stories were more widely shared than factually true news stories. The health of our democracy demands that we gain a better understanding of the fake news phenomenon. So, today, we'll first scroll through and find out what exactly fake news is. We'll then hit the share button and explore how and why fake news spreads, before finally discussing the implications of this phenomenon and deciding whether fake news deserves a thumbs up or angry face emoji. Then maybe we'll be able to understand why a man shot up a pizza place. Let's scroll through and find out what fake news is. Fake news, as defined by Cambridge Dictionary, defines it as false stories that appear to be news, spread on the internet or using other media, usually created to influence political views or as a joke. Professors Hal Alcott of NYU and Matthew Genskoff of Stanford found that in the 2016 presidential election, fake news is widely shared and heavily titled in favor of Trump, and that Democrats were more likely to recognize fake articles. But not for the reasons we think. From a study by Psychological Science in 2017, it might be true that conservatives are more likely to fall for false information. But it's not because they are dumb. They are simply hyper-tuned to their hazards. They trust stories that threaten them more. But when it comes to the spread of fake news, we ourselves are not alone. Our president and online trolls are partly to blame as well. According to the Telegraph in 2017, it states that Trump suggested that Ted Cruz's father helped assassinate JFK, stated that Obama was not born in the United States, and repeatedly claimed climate change is a hoax. Trump's statements has led to an influx of fake news in support of him, as seen in the New York Times article in 2016, Trolls for Trump. Mike Cernovich, a self-claimed reporter online, was among the first to insinuate that Hillary Clinton had a grave neurological condition, which is not true, of course. And with his following, he starts hashtags to make her look bad in support of Trump. But to much of a surprise, the spread of fake news isn't just coming from within our society. It's coming from outside forces as well. As discovered by the FBI in 2017, part of a political disinformation campaign, Russian trolls were discovered to be spreading fake news about Hillary Clinton on Facebook and Twitter in the months leading up to Election Day. Now that we have gotten an understanding of where fake news has been coming from and who has been spreading it, let's hit the share button and explore how and why fake news spreads. Now, in order to understand the spread of fake news, we first must understand what an echo chamber is. An echo chamber, defined by Oxford Dictionary, defines it as an environment in which a person only encounters beliefs or opinions that coincide with their own, so that existing views are reinforced and alternative ideas are not considered. Echo chambers can easily be seen on Facebook today. Taken from this latest Stanford Journal in 2016, it states that online, 41 pro-Clinton fake stories were shared on Facebook a total of 7.6 million times, and 15 pro-Trump fake stories were shared on Facebook a total of 30 million times. People are spreading these fake stories because they reinforce people's own political beliefs. Hence the reason why people are more likely to accept and spread fake news as fact. And when it comes to echo chambers, our president is encouraging his own followers to not consider other facts. As seen from the NY Daily News in 2017, it states that Trump has continued to label CNN as fake news since the election. And a record from Weekly Entertainment found that Trump has tweeted about fake news about 73 times, and still counting, often relating to the New York Times, Washington Post, and CNN. Trump simply tweeting about fake news and slightly leaning liberal media is pushing his conservative followers to only grasp a one-dimensional view of what's happening in the world right now. An example can easily be seen in a 2017 Vox article. Republicans don't think the Russia investigation is a big deal. More than half of Republicans think that the Russia investigation is a political distraction. Also, the public polling policy firm in 2017 has stated that less than half of all Trump voters believe that Trump Jr. did not meet with a Russian lawyer himself, even though there's evidence out there clearly stating quotations from Trump Jr. himself clearly saying that he has met with a Russian lawyer. The poll also states almost 2/3 of Trump voters believe the Russia story to be completely untrue. So even with evidence out there completely debunking fake news, the fact remains, people are unwilling to leave their own echo chambers. because any other fact that does not coincide with their own political beliefs are immediately thrown out the window because they don't support their own thoughts. Now that we've gotten an understanding of the spread of fake news, let's look into the unbiased implications and decide whether fake news deserves a thumbs up or angry face emoji. An extreme negative are people like Pizzagate shooter, taking fake news way too seriously. But that isn't the only problem. Taken from the latest Harvard-Harris poll in 2016, it states that 65% of voters believe there's a lot of fake news now. 85% of voters believe now it is becoming harder to discern between fact and fake. From these instances and statistics, we can get an idea on how fake news is taking a hold on our society. Fake news is not allowing society to make educated choices in the medium that we trust. And without an educated society, democracy will soon fail. However, Forbes in 2017 stated that fake news has positively reinforced news organizations to fact check and a headline that they aren't fabricated anymore. Journalists are terrified of being called out for inaccuracies. And the public, too, is afraid of being duped by an untrue story. And I'm sure all of you will be afraid of being duped by an untrue story as well, which means better quality work and rebuilding the public trust. Also, Facebook, a server and content to 1.86 billion people every day, the same goes for Google, have developed better tools to better curate content to limit the flow of fake news. Now that we have gotten a little bit of a better understanding of Madison's actions, let's review what we looked at today. Today, we scrolled through and found out what fake news is. We then hit the share button and explored how and why fake news has been spreading so much, before finally discussing the implications of this phenomenon. Being informed in a society is important, because without educated people, people will make ill-informed decisions. And without informed decisions, democracy will surely soon fail. I hope after the speech that you all verify your sources before walking into your local pizzeria trying to be the next hero.
All right, great job, Eddie. Thank you. I hope we all feel very informed about fake news and you don't use it in your final speeches. So what's up next, Miraj?
Next we have a poetry piece.
What is a poetry piece, exactly?
I'm glad you asked. It's a combination of different poetry pieces that have the same underlying theme that is aimed to portray a certain message that the person wants to portray.
So who's going to be giving us
Kanako
this speech?
Tony.
Kanako. Tell us a little bit about Kanako.
She has been on the speech and debate team for 4 years now, and she is a public relations for Pi Kappa Delta, which you guys should all join and come to the meeting on Thursday. And welcome Kanako Otani. She's going to give her poetry piece.
Hello everyone. Just let you know, for your interest, I am an international student from Japan. So, now World War III is almost upon us, as you know. By popular demand, it seems. But it occurred to me that if any speeches are going to come off for World War III, we better start writing them right now. So, I have one here about my home country. I hope you like it. So long, Mom. I'm off to drop the bomb, so don't wait up for me. But while you swelter down there in your shelter, you can watch me on your TV. No need for you to miss a minute of the agonizing Holocaust. Think about it. Would you say this is the world in which humans are living? Merely one atomic bomb blast. Just one. Nuclear bomb. On August 6, 1945, one atomic bomb was dropped in Hiroshima and as a result, more than 140,000 civilians lost their lives. However, according to the Business Insider article in January 2017, there are still about 14,900 nuclear weapons around the world. Looking back through our history, we see the profound need to denuclearize the one and only world we inhabit. So through the poetry, So Long Mom, a song for World War III by Tom Leder, Rage by Kishiro Tanaka, These Are Human Beings by Kamikihara, Whale by Kazuko Ohira, Mourning and Appeal by Sankichi Toge. We must never make the same mistake we made 72 years ago. Poetic protest. Here are the songs of my hometown. Hiroshima, Japan. Remember, Mommy, I'm off to get a commie, so send me a salami and try to smile somehow. I'll look for you when the war is over. An hour and a half from now. Think about it. Up until the moment of 8:15 on August 6th, Hiroshima civilians, non-combatants, have endured difficulties and continued to work. From that instant, we must curse. In an instant, blood, beautiful people's eyes pop out. Blood spurted out. Ears blew up. Their noses tore off. Mouth split up to the ears. Necks tore off. Arms tore off. Their bodies turned black-gray. Water in their bodies dried up. Cracks everywhere in their bodies, and red flesh came out of their bodies. Imagine these human bodies. Just imagine. These frightened human beings. These are human beings. Look. How they got changed by the atomic bomb. Out of the swollen lips of the broken face, scorched, black, and deformed, comes a voice. A frail, faint voice. Please help. Little Johnny Jones. He was a U.S. pilot, and no shrinking violet was he. He was mighty proud when World War III was declared. He wasn't scared, no siree. And this is what he said on his way to Armageddon. So long, Mom. I'm off to drop the bomb. Just think about that. Appealing for help. Begging for help. Wanting water. Fathers and children. Children and their mothers. Searching for their missing family in the towering fire. Running away. Wandering. Falling down. Think about this reality. I beg you to think about it. Imagine it deeply. 2 of my children were killed on August 6th. They never returned after they went out of our house. Never again did they come back. Almost all of our relatives died. Almost all of our friends and acquaintances died. And I'm barely alive. Survivors will move on with this grief. Survivors will move on with its memory. Survivors will move on with bearing this fixed mask. The lost, dead town. My dear little children, if you are still alive now, you look nice with these middle school gowns. I wish I could let you eat this bread I'm eating tonight. I want to let you eat it until you get full. I want to be a female demon and the dust. Kill the one that killed you. But today, I will be the sky to let pigeons fly for you. I'll keep on doing until all the pigeons disappear in the sky. It's not too late. Even now, it's not too late to summon your true strength. Just as long as the tears continue to trickle from the wound. 'Cause that day, when a flash that struck your retina penetrated your heart, provided that you carry with you the brand of Hiroshima. People dream through an element out of pitchblende and ore, by means of an everlasting division of energy. Cities and towns shall be built of pure gold. People dream in the shade of trees where working people take their rest, that festival flocks are raving, and the legend of Hiroshima will be told by their gentle lips. That through you, who, covering not even your privates with scraps of charged clothing, post arms of raw flesh, hanging down in front of your chest, falteringly on burnt and bare feet, wandered off through a desert of self-perfecting rebel, on a journey with no solace. People dream that those swanny men's shape, who don't know how to use the power from Earth's center except for slaughter, will remain only in children's picture book. That the energy 10 million times more powerful than gunpowder, 1 gram equivalent to 10 million, will be released from inside the atom into the arms of the people, in the peace sign of the people. It's not too late to extend high those deformed arms, hand together with many similar arms, to support the cursed sun that is soon to fall again. It's not too late, even starting now, to take up and grip firmly in both your palms. Roll and wrap these trembling and drooping hands. No? No. It's not too late. Even now.
No pressure, Rick. So this after dinner speech will be presented by Rick Morris. Rick is a senior math education major, and he has been doing speech and debate for a number of years. He is actually a transfer from Modesto Junior College, where he was a member of their forensics team. So let's give it up for Rick.
So last week, I was out having Cosmos with the girls, and they were thirsty for the bartender, Adam. And he was DTF. Like, AF. But he totally wanted the D. So you might have guessed that I'm queer. Adam surely did. And you'd be right. But it's not because of how I sound. Many people think that they can tell if someone is gay or not by the way that they sound. Even though, according to a 2003 study done by the University of Toronto, we're only right about half the time. While not everyone can sound as fabulous as me, it can be problematic for those who do. A study done in March of 2017 by the University of Surrey, and no, I'm not talking about that sexy voice that speaks to you from your phone. The study shows that queer-sounding people are discriminated against by being seen as less than suitable for leadership positions in the workplace. The gay voice shouldn't dictate how we should or should not be presenting ourselves, whether we're gay or otherwise. And while I'm predominantly going to be discussing the gay voice in terms of men, know that it also affects women. I'm just, more interested in gay men than I am in gay women. So today, we're first going to knock on the back door as we discuss what the gay voice is. Then, we'll go in as deep as we can into why we have the gay voice. Until finally, we'll pull out just in time to splatter your faces with the implications of the gay voice in society. So be warned, front 15 rows, because you're in the splash zone. So, before you're knocking on any back doors, you should first examine its characteristics. What makes that door open? And its history. Really get to know that door. So, we're just easing into this, so relax. According to linguist Ron Smythe, the gay voice is characterized by micro-variations in the voice typically found in women, including clear and elongated vowels. The L's are clear, the S's are longer, and there's over-articulation of P's, T's, and K's. For example, triple T, K-A. Time to totally kick ass. And if you're saying in your head, but Rick, that doesn't have a P, then you can piss off. How's that for a P? Anyways, nasality and upspeak also contribute to sounding gay, according to speech therapist Susan Sankin. Huh. Maybe that nasality is actually from all those angry dragons. And if you don't know what an angry dragon is, please don't look it up in front of children. I promise you it's not a kind of Pokemon. The history of the gay voice can be pretty murky, and there's no clear beginning. So to make things easier, we'll look to its portrayal in the silver screen. According to film historian Richard Barrios in the 2015 documentary, Do I Sound Gay? From the 1940s and on, characters with the gay voice have been portrayed as either killers or have been killed off. I mean, I know we slay, but come on. This can be seen especially in classic Disney villains, such as Jafar in Aladdin. Didn't you see that scene? The one where Jafar was in Aladdin? No? Okay. Scar in The Lion King, Hades in Hercules, and Troy Bolton in High School Musical. Okay, I know that Zac Efron's character wasn't a villain, nor did he have the gay voice, but Zac Efron. But this can be problematic because children have been being raised learning to associate the gay voice with evil. I guess you can say I've been a pretty bad boy. So now that we can agree that I sound gay, we can look at why I sound so fucking gay. Adam says it's because I always try to speak with my mouth full. So, now it's time to really get past the rim of the the issue, and really get into why we have the gay voice. Code switching and modeling stereotypically feminine speech patterns. Now, code switching can be a nuanced and complicated phenomenon, so to make things clear, we'll look to the linguistic and behavioral experts themselves, Key and Peele. As conducted in an interview in May of 2016, Jordan Peele explains it simply. You speak differently at your grandmother's house than you do if you get rolled up on in a bad neighborhood. Or, to put things in speech terms, it's that speech voice that Brenna, Eddie, and all other platform speakers use. Queer men may code switch to the gay voice for a variety of reasons. One of which is that to be included in the queer community, you have to actively present yourself as queer. And for those of us who don't have a queer look, we resort to using the gay voice in order to be included in the community. Also, in today's society, it's expected that if you're actually queer, you have to come out to each person individually to be considered queer. And so code switching to the gay voice is a way to come out without having to say it explicitly to each person. I mean, why else would we raise our hands when we say, "Yas, queens"? The other potential cause of why we would use the gay voice is that we model our speech patterns after stereotypically feminine speech patterns. One reason we may do this is because the gay in question was raised by women, which actually might explain why some straight men also have the gay voice. Or you could believe my queerspiracy theory that says that all straight guys have a little gay in them. And I'm not talking about George Takei. Get it? Because he's a little gay? And I don't mean like a little gay because he's fucking flaming, but I mean like a little gay because he's short in stature. Get it? No? Okay. Another reason that we may emulate feminine speech patterns can be explained by the phallic theory of understanding, which says that society's all about that dick. Basically, if you like dick, you're supposed to present yourself in a feminine way, which is probably why even straight guys act so gay around Chris Hemsworth. Because everybody wants Thor's hammer. Even if it hurts a little. I wonder how many times I could make lightning strike. Sorry, forgot where I was for a second. So let's take this step by step with my gay-ass voice. Do I code switch to present more queer? Guilty. I definitely enter each room like I'm coming out of the last. Let's see, I was raised by women and I'm definitely all about that dick. But with my checklist filled out, what does that have to do with society? Ladies, gentlemen, variations thereupon, you were warned at the beginning of this speech that you are in the splash zone. So don't blink, because here comes two loads of implications. Right in the face. The gay voice further entrenches heteronormativity, and it perpetuates the idea of passing privilege. In order to see how it actually entrenches heteronormativity, we're first going to be examining schema theory, which says that we, as humans, like to categorize people by putting them in boxes where they have traits in common with other people. And for decades, society has been putting queer men in a box. Some might even go as far to call this box, say, a closet. And one of the walls of this closet is the gay voice. So I guess Foucault is right when he said that our social constructs really are a prison. Hashtag free the gays. Hashtag let my people go. Hashtag Moses always had a staff in his hand, so he must have been pro-gay. Which leads us to social cognitive theory, which has a long, complicated explanation that boils down to monkey see, monkey do. And since the gay voice has been used to stereotype queer men in the media, as mentioned before, We have essentially been conditioned to believe that this is the closet that queer men fit in. And since the gay voice is a part of this closet, it makes it easier to identify queer men by setting them apart from the rest of society, thus perpetuating heteronormativity. Unfortunately, this box also exists within the queer community itself in the form of passing privilege. And for queer men who have characteristics that set them outside of this box, they're deemed to have passing privilege. And no, I'm not talking about passing privilege from one person to the next, like you pass HPV. Though wouldn't it be great if we could pass privilege that way? Anyways, those who have passing privilege are ostracized by the queer community because they don't present as queer. However, they're still not a part of the straight community because, you know, they're queer. It's kind of like what Selena's dad said in the movie Selena. You're not Mexican enough for the Mexicans, and you're not American enough for the Americans. Well, that's all the implications I can squeeze out for today. So before I take a nap, let's recap. Today we discussed the history and characteristics of the gay voice. Then we looked at how the gay voice is portrayed. And finally, we looked at how the gay voice perpetuates heteronormativity and passing privilege. Now we can understand that a man's voice doesn't actually indicate his sexual preferences. Maybe we can stop assuming that the way that the words coming out of a man's mouth sound have some sort of bearing on what goes into his mouth. I mean, it's not that hard. Adam figured it out. Though I guess the Cosmos were a dead giveaway.
About the speeches that you heard, any questions about the speech and debate team or Pi Kappa Delta, please. Would speech and debate
for a second, hold on guys.
Would speech and debate members and PKD members raise their hands?
And coaches.
And coaches. So if you have any questions, you can come talk to any of us. Quickly, if you are here for extra credit, which I'm sure is very few of you because you just love public speaking a lot, and you need to sign in, you will actually be signing out. So Peterson, Hall, Moore, and Gautreaux, if those are your TAs, they're going to be up there. If your TAs are
Anderson, Butler,
Camarada, Fatia,
and Common.